Today's question is, are you rich? And it's not rich in the traditional sense of monetary, but it's, are you rich in social capital? And we're going to look at social capital as part of an entrepreneurial behavior, and we're going to assess it in terms of its impact in entrepreneurship as well as through a self-assessment. And this brings us into a close of our discussion on entrepreneurial behaviors. So I'd like you to do a brief activity, and you can pause the lecture as you progress through this. I'd like you to start by listing up to 5 individuals per group among 4 different groups. So our group 1 is our most trusted friends. And note the assignment is to list up to 5. There may be 1, there may be 3, there may be 5. But list by name, by first name, your most trusted friends, and do them in somewhat of a circular pattern, as you see here on the upper right-hand side. Next, do a new grouping of 5 individuals with whom you accomplish work with. This would be in a professional context of your coworkers. If you're not presently working in that kind of a setting, it could be in an organization that you're volunteering with, a social organization, a religious organization, but people with whom you accomplish work with frequency. There may be names that overlap with the trusted group. So it could be that a coworker is also among your most trusted friends, and that is fine, but would want to place them in a separate grouping and simply list their name twice, once in each grouping. We'll then do a third grouping of supporting individuals important to a current project or goal that you have that may or may not be work related, but that you look to for support. It could be buying a home. It could be attending graduate school. It could be other pursuits. The fourth and final grouping would be your social circle. Who are individuals that you spend significant social time with? Evenings, weekends, holidays, vacations, and have a grouping of up to 5 there as well. So what you'll have is a maximum of 20 total names across the 4 groupings. It's okay to repeat names in different areas, and it's okay to have fewer than 5 names in a given area. So you may press pause and do those 4 groupings. The second step is to connect them and to draw a line based on who knows one another well. And well is somewhat subjective, but for our purposes, well would be that they are friendly enough to know their last name, perhaps a bit of their background, where they're from, what college they went to, who their employer is, what startup they're maybe engaged in. But well, as you would define it. In this case, I have Fred and Dino know each other, Fred and Barney know each other, Fred and Wilma know each other, Wilma and Betty know each other, and Betty and Barney know each other. Dino and Barney do not know each other well, nor do Dino and Betty. So I do not have lines for those 2 relationships, but I do have lines for the others that know each other well. Next, for each of the 4 groupings, count the number of lines. And the best way to do this is to make a mark on the line to be sure that it's not counted twice. So in this case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines that are present. And again, I would put a tick on the line. That way you know that you are not marking it or counting it twice. The next step is to put that within a table. And the table is going to help us in measuring the density and effective size of our network. This is a table that you may print and manually write on. This is not something that has to be done digitally. It's simple math that you'll be performing. What it will look like once populated is that you will first count the number of people within each circle with a maximum of 5, and it may be fewer than 5. The number of relationships is the number of lines. If you have 5, then you may have as many as 10 lines that connect. It's possible that you will have no lines or a few number of lines that connect if there's not a relationship between them. From there, it's simple math. What we do here is we have the maximum number of relationships that could be present, and it's simply 2 times A, 2 times this. From there, we can measure the density, B divided by C. We can also measure the redundancy, 2 times B divided by A, and we get an effective size. So we'll do that for the first one. We have 5 people. We have 10 lines that we drew. The maximum number of relationships is 2 times 5, which is 10. And when we look at the density, we divide B by C, the true measure of relationships divided by the maximum possible number of relationships, and that yields 1. 10 divided by 10 is 1, times 100, and we get the density of 100. We'll then measure our redundancy. From here, we can take a look and see, from a redundancy standpoint, 2 times B, 2 times 10 is the 20, divided by A, the 5, is 4. And then we'll look at the effective size. The effective size is A minus E. The number of people minus the redundancy of those relationships, and we find 1, which we would expect. This essentially means that although we have 5 people in our trusted circle, because everyone knows everyone and the maximum number of relationships exist, we have an effective size of 1. What this would suggest is that our trusting as well as our working relationships, because the number is so low and because the number is 1, these would benefit both myself and them from expanding the relationships. They're very cohesive, and that I would benefit from working with more people and perhaps expanding my trust circle a bit. That way I get different inputs and different perspectives and different ideas. That way my work involves people that are new and have fresh perspectives. Inversely, when we do the same math on our supporting and socializing circles, in my case, I had a very high number. Again, 1 is very low, 5 is very high. A 3 would be somewhat in the middle. But because I'm very close to 5, my supporting and socializing networks are very expansive. They're very diverse. There are a lot of people that simply don't know one another. And that if they provide good support to me, they may be able to provide good support to one another. If I enjoy socializing with them, they may enjoy socializing with one another. So I can benefit myself and others in this network by connecting them. So using this simple tool, we can understand both the density in column D of how many relationships exist within my own relationships, as well as the effective size of really how different are they and how unique are they. And when we begin to analyze these networks in this way, we can think about other things as well. We can look at age, education, gender, ethnicity, experience, expertise, and a variety of other factors. What we find for entrepreneurs is the more diverse, the better. If everyone that I work with and collaborate with and socialize with is my age, has an advanced degree, is male, is white, works in education, and has an engineering background, even though I may know 10 or 100 or 1,000 people of that profile, it's arguably not much better than knowing one person, in that there is incredible redundancy. There's not a lot of different experience and skill set and perspectives and knowledge of markets and customers in competition as there would be if I had a much more diverse network. That factors into capital in a few ways. And let's talk about some types of capital. We understand financial capital of money. We understand manufactured capital of something that's built or made. There's human capital of the individuals and their talents and capabilities. There's intellectual capital that may be framed by patents or trademarks or copyrights, that intellectual property piece. But there's social capital that arguably is more valuable than everything else here for entrepreneurs, and that it gives you tremendous access and tremendous relationships that either can't be bought or would be expensive to buy or attain over time. So when we define social capital, we're looking at resources available in and through your personal and business networks. We're looking at the social in the context of it's not owned necessarily, but it's information and ideas, and that it resides in those relationships. And that it doesn't rest with one degree of separation, that it's who you know and who they know. And it can be very expansive, and it can be measured both in its size, but as well as in its quality and in its diversity. And beyond that, it gives you the opportunity to make connections through those connections. Why build it? People with rich social capital, people with large and diverse networks, are better informed. They are more creative. They're more efficient. They're better problem solvers. And you can save time. You can save money. You can collaborate and work smarter when you have significant relationships in place. And when we look at examples of this, it's not uncommon that successful startups breed other successful startups. With the early PayPal team, we found them go on to bigger and better things in many cases. 3 engineers founded YouTube. The former CFO of PayPal funded it. A former executive founded Yelp. A coworker from PayPal funded it. Reid Hoffman founded LinkedIn. A former coworker funded it. And there are multiple examples of this, where individuals have success within a startup. They built relationships, they are understanding skill sets, they're understanding personalities, and the interpersonal relationships form. They can establish that social capital and stay connected and do new things with one another in a variety of different ways. And what we see is that raising capital through social capital is the most common way that people raise funding. The U.S. Small Business Association cites that 75% of new businesses find and secure financing via their social networks. So it's a lot about who they know and who they know that enables them to get the financial capital to start their ventures. So it's the social capital that leads to the financial capital for most startups. And that these relationships also play a role in mid and larger size firms as well. So it's important to understand and to measure social capital And we have a second evaluation beyond the one we already did in class to help you assess this and consider it. Now, building entrepreneurial networks is the second side of that. Maintaining relationships is outstanding. But to build networks, you can use a number of pre-existing programs. You can volunteer. You can associate with alumni clubs of your universities. You can engage in professional associations. You can attend meetups. You can go to events and activities and conferences in areas that interest you. There's a wide array of ways to connect with people. You can join degree programs of people that have common interest. You can also make new programs and make new organizations. And this, again, is an entrepreneurial way of thinking about it. If there's not a group that's accessible to you, there are probably other people that have that same interest for which there's not a group as well. And you can start groups and build and organize your own activities. So in summary, when we think about social capital, we want to recognize it's exceptionally valuable to entrepreneurs, that it's important to map and track and understand your network, and to keep the friends you have. Much easier to retain relationships or renew relationships than to form new ones. And you also be willing to go out and get involved. Get involved in organizations, get involved in activities, start your own organizations and activities, and work to build that social capital.